Good morning. Sorry I'm late.
Good morning, Jeff. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Uh, let's go ahead and dive in. We're in week 197, and we're going to look at one verse which we looked at last week. It was part of 15 through 17, but in verse 18, there's a dramatic shift in Jesus's teaching. He goes from love to hate. We have been looking several weeks regarding love. And all of a sudden, within this preparatory conversation with his disciples, he moves to the subject of hate. And rather than deep diving into that one this week, I wanted to take one more week in this subject of love before we deep dive into how we put hate in the context of what we've already been looking at. So it'll be a really interesting adventure as we move into those last few verses of chapter 15. But before we do, I'd like to spend one more week on this subject. Um, and that's what I just said. Before we move to 518, what can love one another as I have loved you look like in our day-to-day experience? And that's really what this session is all about. uh, I have been actually practicing something here for a while that in regard to this very thing, and I'd like to share it with you and then hopefully create some discussion about that. Last time we uh, we started with a question: what does love one another as I have loved you mean to you? That was the question we had. And we started there, but then the group migrated to another discussion. How we got to judgment, I don't really know, but we did. And we talked about the idea of judgment in relation to how we understand God as being the God of love. So that's where we were last week. And I'd just like to take note that I think we all on the Zoom study appreciated all of your thoughts. Um, all of us, we're seasoned in our faith. We're men of faith who have, um, we're regular guys of faith, but we have the privilege of living life for quite a few years, and we've had decades of experience to ponder this. And it's an age-old question. And I thought the discussion was really exceptional last week, and primarily, exclusively because of your thoughts and how you engaged in that last week. For the fifth time, in Jesus's interaction in chapters 14, I think it actually started in 13. Yep, 13:34 through 35. Jesus gives this command, this directive to the disciples that they are to love one another. That is absolutely paramount in his preparatory monologue, or actually dialogue with the disciples before he goes to the cross. And so it kind of reverts us back to our model that we've been using. And what I'm attempting to communicate is the idea of love originating with the Father, and love is a type of energy. Now, this is metaphorical, please. And although I think it is, it's metaphorical, but I really think of it like this. But it's a battery in a sense, and of course that's a metaphor that the father it's like the positive pressure within your room right now in oxygen, that you and I don't have to grapple to get oxygen. All we have to do is open up our lungs and receive the oxygen that exists. I think of love in that it's existing all around us, and all we have to do is receive it, and that originates from the Father. And so, and this is how Jesus has spoken about his relationship with his Father. It's all integral And love is the tie within this relationship. The Son receives the love from the Father, and as a result, the Son sees himself as one who is loved. A great reference to that is his baptism early on in the Gospels. But behold, my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Jesus accepted that wording from the Father 100%. This is the challenge that we of humans have, is receiving what is true of us. And because of that, it creates all kinds of false constructs and actions as a result. Because Jesus received the love of the Father, he is able to return that love to the Father. He's also able and has the energy, the battery, the charge to love his followers. And here he's saying in this verse, my desire is that you, follower, love one another. So that energy is being transferred from the Father to the Son, and from the Son to his followers through us. And that is the movement of the good news throughout, that it's actually an energy that is creating life to other people. That's how I'm framing this wording. And the portion of this, I would call this one relationship, and the portion that we're identifying within that relationship is this love one another, follower to follower. And this is what it means to be his follower. And honestly, I don't think he could be more clear. So, sorry, I heard somebody. Let's examine this idea of love, and we're going to look at we're going to look at a way that I have been applying this idea for a while now, and I am really loving what I'm experiencing, and I want to share it with you guys. So let's look at how we love. We've got you and I here, and we are loving. There is this case. It could be any subject, but the subject at hand is love, because that's where we are in the text. And just to restate what I said before, we're thinking of love as an extension of an energy which has been received. And we first think of the process like this. This is, I have the capacity to love, direct love in some direction. And this is how we first think of it. However, like most things, it's a bit more complex. And let's slow it down, and let's look at this idea of me loving, or you loving, in relation to what is, I think, more accurate. For one thing, you and I were born in the 20th century, mid 20th century, in North America. Now, Tatsu, were you born in America? Yes. So we're all, I know your family's Japanese, and of course.
Yeah, I was born in Kearney, New Jersey,
Okay.
and I cannot speak Japanese.
Oh, okay. But your family is Japanese.
My mom was born in Japan, and she came over when she was really young, and she was actually so that she could understand Japanese, but she couldn't speak it.
Really?
Right?
Oh,
And my dad, who was born in California, could speak Japanese. So it's kind of weird.
Well, Yeah, okay. Well, because of where we're born, and uh, we view love, we view whatever we're viewing, we view it a certain kind of way. If we were born black in the South in the early 20s, we would have a different perception outcome of what love is to some degree. But because we are all close to being born at the same place in America, we've been we've been influenced to think about love or anything in a certain kind of way. We all have value of the Holy Bible, the scriptures, and we've had interaction with that over decades. And we call ourselves followers of Jesus. And the Bible has had a huge influence on how we view virtually everything. We've all had various levels of education and learning. Some of it's been what do you call it, formal. Some of it's informal. Um, we all have true life experience, which is certainly valuable. We all have had responsibilities of various levels in our lives, and that, of course, informs how we view love and or anything. We've all heard voices. These voices are all around us, our culture. Do I listen to Fox News? Do I listen to CNN? Do I listen to NPR? Do I listen to the BBC? You know, what I listen to has been influenced by how I think and what I listen, and on the internet, even Amazon, these big moving powers on the internet, they've got us figured out. And so they tend to feed to us those things that they think we want to hear, which is actually a little it should wake us up a little bit. Are we all getting the same news? No, no, we're not. There's church in our community, which is in our case church, um, and the voice in the church and the community, of course, has had influence on us. Some of us have had the privilege of having a mentor within our in our lives, and that mentor has spoken into our lives. So we have lots of influences, lots of voices, lots of ideas that inform virtually everything that you and I think about, including the subject of love. And how it works in real time is like this. Wow, all of this stuff going on, interaction between the two, and it really has become a complex system, and only through that is now we see love. And notice the imposition of the of the lenses. Now I look at love. I would say it is in most cases uh, impractical to think that I can look at love without being biased in some degree. And what I'm imposing is really little me over the subject at hand. Notice the lenses. And so this is how I'm saying this is more accurate. And I think that by thinking this way, of course, it should get our attention. It should drive us to the idea of humility and maybe slow us down some. Um, I think you guys have never seen this graphic, but I think you're very well aware of what this is attempting to express. And I feel that I see almost everything through what I create. Notice I kind of left it open ended. Maybe there's something I see that is actually the way it is, and I don't doubt that. But I'm taking the safe route, and I'm saying I see almost everything through what I create. At least what I help to create is what I'm meaning. there's something, love exists, absolutely. But how I see that love is that portion of it is what I create in my head. So what is needed and what is given to us through the Lord Jesus Christ is what I call a second intelligence. Dave, you and I have talked about this. We talk about this at one of our camps, The Way of Wisdom. A second intelligence. And I believe that is available to all human beings. And I really think this is at a core of what Jesus was attempting to communicate. The invitation by Jesus is to step into and function within a different way of seeing. And I think wherever there's conflict within the text, within Jesus's ministry, is they just don't see it the same. They don't understand him, and that's the problem. Paul wasn't at this study. Paul wrote this. Paul calls this, I call this the mind of Christ. A different way to think of the second, not a different way to think about it, but I've labeled the second intelligence the mind of Christ. I get this out of Philippians because I really think Paul is directing the church at Philippi to have the mind of Christ. It's something you can actually function within, have this mind in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. And then he goes and defines what that mind of Christ is. So I'm thinking it's actually something that I can apply, being a follower of Jesus, that's accessible to me if I will allow it. In order to allow it, I have to let go. I have to let go of my own way of thinking. So what I'd like to do is illustrate this idea for all of us, and then allow plenty of time to discuss it. We're going to play around with a model here. So if we start with a circle that represents my life and your life, and that would be the sum total of all our experience at this time in life, this day, which is the 20th, what is today? 20th of March? No. 27th of March today? Yeah, okay, 27th of March today of 2024. Okay, so there is a circle depicting my life, my sum total of experience. The parameter, the outer border of that circle is defined by my perspective. My perspective defines that. That's how I see on any particular subject. And I'm given the fact that I have, prior to the prior slide, I've looked at everything in life as other things have been informing me, and I've derived to some degree how to view those things. I think that's a safe and a humble position to take. And it also means I've got something to learn from you. So we're actually projecting how we think about love onto love. And that's the idea. And that is true of just about every subject. Now that is our default human state right here. And I can choose every day to function out of this, which I do. And I don't think the outcome is disastrous, but it's very limited. It's not transformational, that's for sure. I would think most of the society operates from this perspective. Do I have enough to eat? Do I have a sense of belonging? Do I have some level of purpose? Do I have a job in life? And that's how I'm thinking. But we were actually invited by Jesus into a much enriched, deeper way of living. And I symbolize that idea with a triangle. That triangle is something that we can, it's through faith. We believe in this, that Jesus is providing this for us. And I use the symbol of the triangle because the triangle represents something that is firm, solid basis. It's an idea that's been around. And so it's an idea that has substance, is the triangle. The basis, the core of this triangle, and again, we're not making this up. This is what we're being invited into to actually experience, is this idea of safe place. I believe Jesus is providing a safe place. This is what the book, we were talking about the book earlier. When I had opportunity to write a book, I think the unconditional love of God is what is absolutely true. And I believe that is a safe place that all humanity individually can embrace and work out of. The trouble is we have a really hard time believing that. And that's where the tension is. But this is what the book's about, really. And I am loved regardless, because it's saved. I am loved absolutely regardless. We call it birth, not behavior. So, and that gives me, I believe that gives me clarity. That gives me a clear set of lenses to work with. Now, I don't throw the other lenses away. No, not at all. But I think it's a good idea to impose this set of lenses on any activity that comes my way by simply saying, how can I express the mind of Christ? Yeah, that's one way to do that. I think just by asking, it's certainly not about white knuckling. It's just asking. Um, and this is a second set of lenses that we put within our daily life. We don't replace, we put it as in first position. Now there's going to be 3 points because there's 3 spots on a triangle. And what I have been doing, fellas, is I have been awakening every morning with a question. What is my question today? And I've talked about this. I went into a whole bird thing a little bit a few weeks ago, John, and I remember you commented, and I don't think it really went over that well, but to me it was exciting. It was really exciting, and I have been awakening you. I'm picking on you, John, because you came back and asked me some questions, and I think my daily question, unless I have an absolute directive for that day, my generalized question is, how can I extend the love of Jesus today? And so that is my question. That's my question today. How can I enter my day today and extend the love of Jesus to another individual or in some way today? That's my question. So there's actually an active question rather than that keeps me engaged. It puts me engaged as I go to Lucky's. What do I need to do? As I write emails today, I've got a few minor things to do. Actually, as I take care of the dogs today, how can I extend? It may sound crazy. Well, yeah, do with it what you will, but I got a daily question, and I love doing this. This is really enjoyable, and it's amazing what I've been experiencing. So now I leave my little office. I go out and do whatever, or I start here with my spouse, Sandra, and enjoying the day. And so as I go out throughout my day, I learn to observe. So it's kind of like where I become not only I was going to use the word victim, not only a person on the chessboard, but I'm watching me move on the chessboard. I observe and I listen to intuition. Oh, I think intuition is something we could deep dive into. Some of it's good directive, some of it's not. And it's the idea that the Spirit of God is present and engaged in the here and now, and I get to be a part of this. So, how is the Spirit of God going to speak back to me of my role at this particular time? We talk a lot about the role of the Spirit being Spirit led. This is my little take on it at this point in life. I have a question, and then I actually engage my day through observing and listening to intuition as I'm moving about. Yeah, intuition. I have a feeling to call someone, to encourage them. I think we ought to take it. I think we ought to do that. Uh, I, I I think if we listen to our intuition, that we could really see some neat things happen. Um, John, yeah, go ahead, John.
So, so how is intuition related to Spirit of God?
Okay, good question. Again, John, this is me speaking, so so bear with me here. If the Spirit of God is present in the here and now, okay, that is the assumption that it is God is moving and active in my world, in your world, in all of around us, and it's about extending the good news, the message that Jesus has portrayed with other people. I tend, John, to get disengaged to that idea. I'm numb to it. I wake up every day and I've got this responsibility and this responsibility and this responsibility, and I'm not really engaged into that reality by nature. So this little idea of the question engages me. So now I am actually looking, how is God leading me? And some of it's valid, some of it's not, but I think it sure is fun to try. And so intuition is one way that the Spirit of God can speak to me. Circumstances, intuition, feeling, these are all things I think we could do well to pay attention to because of the Spirit's presence and what I'm a part of. Boy, John, that's a long answer to a short question, but I hope it was helpful. So observation and intuition, then that leads to this idea of coincidence. And I actually talked about this a few weeks ago, but I think coincidence is amazing. And I think I am by nature not really awake to the coincidences that come in my life. When I go to the grocery checkout line, my goal is to get through. Maybe it might be good to stop and have a conversation with someone. Or maybe as I bump into someone on the on the street, but to just take time and enter into that to the degree that actually the other person is dictating at that time. And I think, fellas, I think a friendly voice and a greeting and a sincere, a naming of their name if they have a bad. This isn't it's not a technique. It's an engagement of our whole being into the moment right here and now. And I think there are some really cool things that can happen. So we include the coincidence. I don't know if I told the fish story from a couple of weeks back when I was up in Estes Park, but I met a guy the day before, and I was going down to fish this one area. It was a snowy morning in Estes Park, and I wanted to actually try some things that this guy had told me. And I got down there to that place the next morning in Estes, and he was there. And he said, I said, well, hey, I didn't have his name yet. And I said, well, good to see you. I just came down to try this, my last day here, and I wanted to try what you were saying yesterday. And I'll go down here a ways because you don't want to intrude on people's space. And he says, why don't you just come right down here and fish the other side of this pool? And so he invited me into his world, and we ended up having a great conversation over the, back and forth. And I learned that he is recovering from cancer. The day before was the first day he got out fishing, and he's wanting people to fish with. We met on the bridge just down, and on this Friday we're having coffee in Longmont. Isn't that cool? I think we're having lunch actually. But I mean, that's a little coincidence that who knows? Who knows what that will mean? Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I've mentioned him before. He's gone to be with our Lord. It was Vic Hunsberger,
Yeah.
who was in a study with me for years, and he would put a slightly different label on the experience that you just described and call it a godcidence rather than coincidence.
Yeah. And I think your friend is absolutely correct. The thing that my little technique here is to keep me awake to that. If I'm not awake to it, I tend to go into this reaction mode. And how much am I missing that could be there? So including coincidence is that. Thanks, Dave. And then that returns back to the answer. So I've got a question. I'm observing, kind of watching myself in a sense, looking for an answer of what that question, how can I extend the love of Jesus today? And as I go about life, I'm thinking about this question and allowing something to come to me. And then I respond within that, and that is my answer to the question. I have found this really a lot of fun. And this could be a way of thinking about being spirit led, a way, a way. I love that verse. I've quoted it numerous times when when Jacob wakes up to the dream in Genesis 28, and he announces out loud, speaking of God Almighty, you were there all along and I didn't know it. I love that idea. The presence of God is here and now. And what can I do? What can I do to engage in that in some manner? Wow, that's exhilarating to me. So what I want to do is move right into table, and we've got 30 minutes, 25 minutes. And there's a question that I'd like to throw out on the table. John's already asked a really good question. I'd like to hear what other people think. So in order to launch this idea, what excites, alarms, scares, or confuses you about this idea? Let's talk about that, fellas. What are your thoughts?
I don't know that this could be classified as a godcidence, but the timing is certainly interesting. I just read a devotional yesterday. It's actually written by, when we were in Papua New Guinea, the church that we attended was pastored by this couple, and they're now retired. They live in Australia, and one of the things they did, they got in their little trailer and they drove all the way around the continent. And in part of the process, she ended up writing a little book of some of her devotionals and experiences. And the one I read just the other day, Mike, and when you put your lenses up, it really struck me. She talked about the experience she had on their bicycle. They were in an area where there were a bunch of old railroad tunnels. long since abandoned. In most cases, you could see the light at the end of the tunnel. So she was on her bike, but as she got in, she still was unsure about, she couldn't see the ground clear enough, so she had to get off and walk her bike until she got to the other end and realized that she hadn't taken her sunglasses off. So her dark lenses, which were just natural to her for where she had been, her dark lenses were prohibiting her from seeing what was actually right in front of her.
That's exact. So that was a devotional?
Yeah.
That is ironic. Yep. Yep. That's exactly.
So I think there's a message there for all of us, and it's part of what you're describing.
Yeah.
You know, the world that we have, the experiences that we have, each of those, and it changes. I think we're putting on different glasses at different times, depending on what it is that we're interacting with. And I think we have to be careful of that, because those glasses are our filters. And the Holy Spirit would have us not filter things from him, but everything through him should be very clear and open and easy for us to see.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. That's a great story. Thank you. I know you're not Steve Schunig. You're still Steve Schunig on the screen, Jeff, but
Oh, sorry.
we know who you are. Go ahead.
I'm looking at this defined by my perspective, and we've talked about what influences our perspective and stuff. But I had another word that came to mind as you were talking about this, looking at the lenses, and that is posture. And the reason I say that is I have progressive lenses. So I can see far at the top, and in the middle, I can see like the panel on when I'm flying, and then the close up is for reading. And I feel like that posture before God has a lot to do with how well I can see, whether I have dark lenses on or whatever. So it kind of goes along with what Dave was saying. But if my posture before God is one of pride and arrogance, and my head is up, then I'm looking through the bottom lens and I can't see very far. Everything beyond a foot or so is out of focus. If I am bowed before God, then I'm looking through the top part of my glasses, which allows me to see more clearly what is going on ahead of me. And your question is, how can and I don't remember how you said it, but basically I'm looking for what God wants me doing today. If my posture is one of arrogance and pride and puffed up, then I can't see very far. So I can't see what God wants me to do. But if I'm bowed before God, then I can see clearly what he wants me to do. I'm going to observe more better, and I'm going to see coincidences as they're coming. I won't miss them because I can't see far enough.
Yeah. That's it. I love the idea of the progressive lenses. That's a really good thing to think about. Thanks, Jeff. Dave's got a comment on that probably.
Yeah, and that's a really vibrant way of looking at it, Jeff. And the word that immediately comes to mind in the Greek, where it talks about maturing as a believer and growing into our faith and so forth. And the root word in Greek for mature is teleos, which is the same root word for our word telescope. And the concept there is that being mature, a great deal of that has to do with keeping our eyes focused on what's ahead of us, what's out there, and being ready to receive and try to understand that. And as you're saying, if your eyes are not focused or not looking in that direction, you can end up stumbling over something that's right in front of your body. Because you didn't see it coming at you. So I think it's important. It's been important for me, at least, as a maturing Christian, because I'm not there yet, to remember that it's teleos, that I have to keep my eye focused on what's out there, and to remember that there's always more of him out there. I never will see it all, because there's just too much of him. So I have to keep looking and keep maturing.
I thought paleo was a diet.
T, the letter T.
P, not P.
Okay. Paleo, not paleo. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Yeah, thanks for that. Other ideas here, fellas.
You know, Mike, you've put the word alarms down there at the bottom.
Yeah,
And one of the things that alarms me about it is that it might be an interruption and I lose control.
ah,
You talk a lot about control. Yeah, yesterday, a neighbor rang our doorbell. He's a single senior citizen and he's brusque. Sometimes his line is not real clean. And his personal hygiene sometimes leaves something to be desired. Anyway, the background to the story there. And he's with CenturyLink, and CenturyLink has had his phone, his landline, out of service for about a week and a half.
wow.
And he wanted to use our cell phone. And it alarmed me, because if you've ever called CenturyLink, you know you're going to be on the line with somebody from the Philippines for probably 45 minutes to a minute at a minimum.
Yeah.
And I just went, oh, this is derailing my day and my plans.
Yeah.
And Miriam came around the corner, and then it actually didn't turn out to be 45 minutes or an hour. And afterwards, she said, I just asked God what was in this encounter.
Yeah.
And instead of it being an alarm, she just, said, God, what's in this interruption? And that's a perspective that I know I need a lot, a lot more of. What's divine. But your question sort of brings about, and I thought of this with your eagle coincidence when you were fishing and that. Does God sometimes simply use coincidences to delight us?
Yeah.
Without there being, in a sense, a heavy missionary purpose to it? I guess I'll phrase it that way.
Yeah. It's part of life. It's a great question. Yeah. I don't know. Steve's posed a question. Bill, go ahead and
Well, boy, I'm going to try to keep off a bunch of rabbit trails here. But the safe place, I love the way you said, I am loved regardless. I mean, that regardless is a big piece of that. I'm not loved because I'm a member of this church. I'm not loved because I have this position in the Bible. I'm loved regardless. And I have come to that more and more lately. And that gives me what Galatians calls tremendous freedom. Freedom to screw up, freedom to question things, freedom to listen to other people that normally someone says, don't listen to that person.
Yeah.
And there's things out there that I've learned. And I'm not worried about that. I may be wrong. I might be right. I hope I'm right. But it doesn't, as long as it operates into something that turns into kindness, I'm comfortable. I'm not off the track too far.
Yeah.
But I do know that people who operate out of a safe place, they're the kind of people you like to hang around. They're the people that draw you in. And that's pretty important. And the people that tend to want to put you in a box, they move from the position of persuasion to the position of coercion. That's happening in the church now, that persuasion doesn't seem to be satisfactory. So now we'll move towards coercion. And suddenly that's just splitting the church all over the place. It's an interesting time.
Yeah, it really is more separation today than in my within the church than in any of my lifetime. That's really true. Thank you, Bill. Well said. Jeff, a comment.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to manipulate or monopolize the conversation, but
No, we'd love to hear you. Yeah.
I look here and I see defined by my perspective, And one of the things that God has been speaking to me over the last several weeks, at our church, we're doing resurrection stories. People from the church are coming up front and telling their resurrection story. They're giving their testimony about
Yeah.
what God has
Yeah.
done. And what that has done for me is helped me get out of my own perspective to see that God works through people that I would never associate with. We've had several come out of lives of severe addiction, and that I can't resonate. That does not resonate with me because I've not dealt with that.
Yeah.
So it's given me a new perspective about what God does. But then we've had people that said, "Hey, I got saved as a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old." But my story is that I have tried to be successful, and I've let that be my God, and that those sort of stories have taken me and given me a new perspective about how God works in this world. So I can love, I can fellowship with people that I would never associated with because of what God has done, not only in their lives, but what he's doing right now in my life to change my perspective and to be able to love like Christ, somebody that I would never even talk to.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. Another great comment. How about some of the rest of you? What are your thoughts, either in regard to the idea of the diagram or from your own experiences? What are you thinking?
I want to agree with Bill. If I understood what he said, I agree with him.
That's a scary thought.
I know if my progressive, these are progressive lenses, oddly enough. I wrestle with the idea that I'm in performance mode, and I know that that's not where you guys are coming from, but oftentimes was the way it's presented to me when I say that today I want to be more Christ-like, or whatever task I subject myself to. I want to put on the mind of Christ. I want to do what would Jesus do, and you get a bracelet.
Yeah.
But all of this is a modality that was not naturally there, but that I'm going to do now because it occurred to me. I'm becoming more in my age, or I want to say maturity because it sounds better, that I am what I am. I'm not between 9 and 11. I'm going to become more Christ-like because that's on my to-do list. And then I'll go back to being Vince. I just presume that because I have Christ in me, the hope of glory, because I have the mind of Christ, because I am seated in the heavenlies, because I am accepted in the beloved, because I am the apple of God's eye, because I am all those things that we read about in the Bible, that what I'm doing, short of torturing babies and stuff, if you got, like what Bill said that struck me, you're trying to be a nice person. You're trying to be a good person. That's just who you are. You're trying to help people. But I'm not doing it because between 9 and 11, I'm going to do what I think Jesus would do. I'm just doing what Vince does. And I'm presuming that that's what Jesus would do. Why would it be any different if I am everything he says I am? Because when Jesus said, and I know it sounds strange to the ear, but I believe it. When Jesus says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. It's like people like, I can't imagine what God looks like. He's so immense. He's so immeasurable. He's so infinite. I can't even relate to him.
Yeah.
And Jesus said, you see me, don't you? Yeah, well, that's what he's like. I think we can say the same thing. It's not received as well because I still got this fleshly body here, but I don't think it's that far wrong to say that.
Yeah, I think you are bringing up exactly what Steve was saying earlier in regard to, does God bring things our way just to enjoy? I know my mentality for years was the divine appointment, that there are certain things God wants to do through me, and I need to, I need to pony up and get that stuff done. I no longer think of that at all. And I think that's what Steve was alluding to, is that we are free, as Bill was saying, to live life. And part of that life is just engaging with other people around, and 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 enjoyment and peace and all of these great things are all part of the picture. So my mind puts me on the 9 to 11. I'm on. I got to do God's work here to make God happy. That just, boy, my mind is not there anymore. That's for sure. Dave, go ahead, Dave.
Any of us who are fathers know of times that we have arranged, been able to focused on doing something for a child just because we love them.
Yeah.
There was no agenda. There was no anything other than let's do this because I love you and this is fun, or whatever. And yes, I believe our Father is very much that way. Mike, you spend a lot of time outdoors and in the river.
Yeah.
Your eagle story is a prime example, I believe, of God just saying, "Hey,
Oh,
Mikey, watch this."
yeah. That's exactly right.
And I believe that's the way he is. That's the way our Father is. Our Father is also the one, the Almighty, who can and will deal with disobedience, and that's the side of a coin that we don't want to look at. But again, paralleling our lives as earthly fathers, there are times when we have to instruct, we have to correct, we have to discipline, and that's part of maturing. And so somebody was saying earlier, maybe it was Bill, he is so immense, he's so big, he's so grand. How can we grasp him? Well, we can't, but we can experience him day by day.
Yeah. John, yeah, go ahead, John.
So Jesus said, a new command I have for you, right? New, that you love one another, which has been repeated, as I have loved you.
Hmm.
So do you think, as Vince was remarking, do you think our response during the day is a natural response, that we just tend to give what we receive? Or is it something that we have to be intentional about?
Well, because of time, I wouldn't normally jump in here, but because of time, I've given this a lot of thought. To me, it's not about doing in order to pleasing God. It's a matter of waking up to the world that I'm already in. That's what it is. And in order for me to wake up, what's helping me is to have a question. There is, yeah. I need something to keep me awake. Because I tend to walk around asleep. And I want to be awake, John.
So you're saying
Yeah.
the idea of it being a little intentional is a good idea to kind of
Well, it is to me. Yeah.
jog us into and awareness.
Yeah, this model here is a suggestion of that, but in no way is it a duty that I feel I'm pleasing God and God is happy with me.
Can I share a screen, Mike?
Yeah,
Maybe?
yeah.
No, I can't. It's
Let
okay.
me,
That's all right. Don't worry about it. I'll just read it to you. So it's a graphic. It's a plaque that was on a building, and it's from St. Clair. I don't know who St. Clair is, but it says this: we become what we love, and who we love shapes what we become.
Huh.
We become what we love, and who we love shapes
Oh.
what we become, which I think is this.
that is really a good,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think Saint Clair was the feminine side of Saint Francis. I think they were
Oh,
knew each
yes,
other.
yes.
Right.
Yep, yeah.
Would you mind sending that to Steve? And Steve, could we ask you to send it out? I'd like to have that quote. That's a really good quote. So, fellas, it's 8 o'clock, and I hate to cut it off, but I'm gonna cut it off because we do need to get going. And next week we'll actually next week is April. And we'll be here April 3rd. We'll be here, and we'll actually next week is we'll start the dive into the contrary, or is it contrary? How do we understand Jesus's words of the world hating you, and all? How do we put that in any kind of meaning in relation to what we've talked about now for about 2 months or more? So I'm really excited about trying to do a deep dive into that, and we'll do that. We'll start that next week. Have a good week, fellas.
Happy Easter.
Yep. All
Love
righty.
you guys.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a question. Bye for now.